That's what you meant.
Both mics on. Penalty for Manchester City.
Yep.
No match of the week this week, though. It's all right.
If I had to pick one,
We're watching it right now.
I guess this was for
Thriller.
the rest of the world, definitely the game. And I'll be honest, I was looking at the updates on my phone, like hoping both these teams would drop points. So this is the perfect outcome for us as we picked up 3. Tottenham went to back-to-back losses. So
You know what I don't
it's a
like?
positive weekend for us.
You know what I don't like before
Go Gunners!
like our games though?
What's that?
When like players are watching soccer like before their game. And it's like I know it's like well they're watching it, but I want them focused on their own game
Yeah,
at that point
I would
in
say
time.
that's what behavior that belongs at the night before, right? Like the visualization period of the player is most likely the time to do that is when you're laying in bed the night before and you've had good food, you've gotten some water, and like you're prepared for it.
Exactly, not like right before the match, especially when it's live. Like everyone wants to be watching that game maybe and not everyone knows the score. If only a couple people are watching it, it's like it doesn't
Yeah,
let the whole team watch it, and it separates two people or three people from the whole group. If you look at it that way too, when we should be preparing together.
yeah, I would say it's a distraction at that point. If they're watching football on their way into their own game, I would absolutely call that a
What about
distraction.
like in the warm up? Like let's say
No
you know
chance.
how we have like a 15-minute grace period, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I love
In
that
that
time.
grace period, or if they're watching it, how about that?
Hey Zeke, relax, big guy. I would say that period is for people to do what they want for themselves. But again, like you've just mentioned, it's kind of a clicky behavior. Golazo. Um, do you think you can get up and let him in? He's going to continue to whine.
Oh,
This guy, the big boy. He's
oh,
excited to see Brett's home, so he's going to sit here and whine for the next hour.
go ahead, Z.
See you, Zeke. Have a good time. Yeah, so I don't know. I like to set that 15 minutes of grace period for players for them to come together and start to mesh
As a team,
as a team and
not
as
in a clique.
humans, just like as a group, like hey, what's up? The ball's out, they're knocking it or juggling it, but they're here and they're with each other here. And what I mean by that is their heads are up, they're interacting with one another. They're like, I don't know, preparing as a group. Yeah, and I think that if you're like this, like before your game at any regard, it's not going to help you play in the match as you're going to have to start to move your body, make quick decisions, and these things you're watching in this game are not the same situations you'll be faced with in that game. So it's realistically like, I don't know, maybe, yeah, it's ill placed because it's a proper behavior, but it just belongs at the night before. It's the visualization period. Like I used to lay my head down at night before games as a teenager and dream of all the things that could or I would make happen, and that helps. And I think you could hear a lot of coaches and players talk about how the power of visualization helps when it comes to the game day, but studying the game does not belong right before it. Like you're about to practice, so the game itself. So like you need to be preparing your body and your mind for that. And realistically, eyes glued to a phone with one or two of your teammates during the activation hour is not that.
I've got a couple keywords that I like to point out that you said. One of them being in the now, present. That's a big one because like why else are you there? And it was kind of upsetting because I was at a warm up yesterday for a team, and they're all just like joking around, and it's like why do you come out here and like do this if you're gonna be messing around? Like you can go do that if you hang out with your friends somewhere else. But
100%.
there's some people here that want to actually get something out of this, and that is something that I really like with my teams, and it's going to be something we're going to be discussing later on in more detail when we talk about the standards and the rules and the team regulations, as you can say it, that we have for our own teams and what we demand as coaches. But I
Yeah.
also want to talk about how this is Pitchside Prospects.
This is Pitchside Prospects, and welcome to the 9th edition of the podcast. And
Monday, it's November 13th. We're getting into that holiday season. Everyone's trying to see their loved ones, buy stuff. Where we're more focused on this new opportunity that we're getting with new groups of people. It's always fun to have a new team, and we're also going to be discussing that later on in the episode. But the first thing that we're going to be discussing about today is our all-time 11s. Something that I really wanted to talk about with you and
this
debate.
was weeks ago now, though.
It was a long time marinating in the Pitchside Prospects episode pool.
Yeah, I would say that I started marinating it, and then I forgot it was marinating, so I'm shooting in the dark now. You know, I'm just gonna hope it tastes good.
No, mine's like a dry age. You know, it's like it's been in that dry age container for like months now, ready to eat.
No, but I think that what a header that is. And an all-time 11, like, is such a subjective conversation. I think that like anybody can have a good debate when it comes to putting on all-time 11 on, you know, and it's a matter of opinion really, because the players that play the game across the world, all over for the last few hundred years, really make a big difference in each squad.
And you know what's so good is that this game really is all about opinion. There is no right way. So whatever opinion that you may have or I may have or Sir Pep Guardiola or whoever, it's just an opinion. And your opinion is going to be right or wrong depending on time. Only time will tell.
Yeah.
So how about we start with the goalkeepers?
So mine's simple, man. I'm going with Gigi.
Buffon.
Yeah,
Oh.
I got Senor Buffon in goal. 41 year. He played until he was 41. He played for multiple clubs in his time and all top tier. But my thing about Gigi is a matter of respect. Like I can't think of anybody that didn't respect Gigi. You know, like everywhere he went. And true leader, somebody that upholds his morals and values like very well, like off the camera, off the field, and I think that's what you need in a goalkeeper, somebody like that.
I like that one. That's a good pick. I gotta go with my favorite goalkeeper. It's Iker Casillas.
That's a good
Spanish
choice.
Real Madrid legend. To
His
be honest,
end of his career,
Real Madrid kind
people
of did him
hated on
dirty.
him. Yeah,
Real
people
Madrid
really hated
did
on
him kind of dirty because he wasn't the first choice goalie anymore, and they had some Diego Lopez, whoever that is, dude, playing over him. That's crazy. I think he got done really dirty in his career, but he also just the amount of saves that he made in very very clutch moments and
Important games.
the clutch moments that he had from the start of his career playing his first game as a Champions League final, if I'm not mistaken. That is and winning it. That is something that Gigi never did. So I think I'm already +1 right there to my team. But both of them won World Cups. Casillas made an insane save in the World Cup against Arjen Robben to
I remember that one
stop
vividly.
the Dutch from winning the World Cup because that was in normal time. And you already know Spain won the World Cup that year. So I got to go with my man Iker.
And it's a great choice because I remember when I was coaching at my first high school program back in LA, Kenyon High School, shout out. I would step into goal because that's where I would like to coach from at that time in my career. Because I was always told, don't play with your players, you're a better coach when you're not. But I found a mix or a gray zone where if I stepped in goal, I really still had my analytical brain. I was looking at everything. But then when it came into my area, I would step in and have to play a little bit. But I would call myself Iker. Like I would get the gloves from my goalkeeper or something and be like, I'm Iker, come on then. Like
There
he
you
was
go.
so big at that time that
Yeah.
he was doing such big saves that even I at that time like idolized or wanted to be just like him. I was like, and I'm not a keeper. I'm far from that.
If
But
you
at
were
the
a
time,
keeper, you'd be like
he could be regarded as the best.
who was
And it's like,
the
oh,
Mexican keeper that played
Oh,
both?
Ochoa?
No. Ochoa. That was gonna be my second choice. It was gonna be Casillas or Ochoa, because Ochoa in the World Cup, dude.
I'm like
he was
that really
prime.
long-haired Colombian goalkeeper that this famous video of him scorpion kicking off.
No, man, dude, I'm gonna get hated on for not knowing this Mexican goalie, man.
Oh, that's
Wow.
it's not good, man.
Let's just move on, dude. Let's move
I
on.
know
I can't believe.
we had Tim Howard, then we have Matt Turner.
Stop shaming me, bro. Stop it, man. Defenders. Let's go to this defensive line, and this is gonna be open to no matter what formation you want to play. I mean,
I'm going 3 back.
I thought you were gonna be a disciple of the four.
I'm going 3
The
back
4-3-3.
because I want some more mids in this all-time lineup.
Smart.
And I'm gonna go in the back line. I'm gonna go Maldini as the left center back, Beckenbauer as the center back, and Cafu as the right center back as the 3.
Ballsy.
And arguably the one that I'm like concerned about not having in there is Roberto Carlos. I'm concerned about not having Roberto in there, but it's all right. With those 3, we're gonna have to just move on forward. And I guess like on the last podcast we talked about Marcelo. I guess Roberto Carlos for me, I would take him over Marcelo, but I don't know, there's something about that. I'm just gonna avoid the whole situation and put Maldini as the left center back, Beckenbauer at the center back, and Cafu at the right center back. Yeah, and I mean, as far as the back line goes, I wouldn't want to play against him.
What characteristics in the back line do you like in your team, especially if you're going to be picking these guys, or is it just because these guys are the best defenders to ever play the game?
I think Maldini first is like at a time where AC Milan was so good, but it was brutal in the Italian leagues. He found a way to defend with an elegance. Like it wasn't so just through you. Like he used his brain. And for me as a coach, and you know this well, for when I'm watching a player play and think, I'm enjoying it the most. And
that can be both sides on the ball, not just with the ball.
The defenders have every right to play and think even without the ball. And when you see them doing things that are just like a step smarter than the rest, they're not relying on their physical attributes, they're using their cognitive ones. That for me is like, I want that guy and I want him every time.
Like that like one step ahead.
We had a player last year who played in the fullback position that was incredibly intelligent, but he did lack like some sort of physical attributes, and it didn't stop me from starting him one bit because he used his brain to get out of every situation that he could. And I loved watching that kind of player. It's just an impressive thing to do.
Yeah, I wish I could say his name, but
me too.
Yeah,
but I
that
define that so
player.
well that you can understand who I'm talking about without even saying his name.
No, it's because the way that you explained it, the defending and being able to handle defensive situations,
pressure,
being
really.
one step ahead, that's key. Even though he may have not been the best in the transition, I'll tell you that. But
when
not everyone has their strengths or their good days and bad days.
But he would initiate the transition often than not. He would start the change in possession. When he did it, he used a situation in a manner that I couldn't have thought of. Meaning that he usually did something that I didn't see possible on the field in that moment. And I go, bah, genius,
Yeah.
And I think if I was standing on the sideline touchline and Maldini was in front of me on my left side, that's something you would get out of him. It's like those moments of genius where you're just like, I'll be quiet now and just go sit down and watch you do your thing. Like I really enjoy cognitive level players. I think with Beckenbauer, it's a safe pick. Like in a 3-back system, you're really not going to have a center back who's going to be driving forward quite often like that. And I mean, he plays 6 sometimes, and I feel like he might have a little bit of this, but he's such an iconic all-time defender that I think any backline without him is doing a disservice to his ability and his time in football.
Well, now that you're saying that, I think I'm gonna go. I gotta go against you with my back line. I'm gonna pick Maldini as well, just because I like the longevity. I think it was 25 years
Yeah,
at the same club. Just doing that is.
I respect Gerard for the same thing.
Why do you say it
It's
like
crazy.
that?
Gerard? Is that
Gerard.
okay?
You're disrespecting the
He's all
name.
over my pronunciation today. I don't know what it is about it, but he's really come after my pronunciation today. But yes, Gerard. Any person that spends 20 years at a club deserves a respect because
Oh yeah.
it, like we've said, loyalty in football is rare, and we have a whole podcast that we're avoiding on just that subject, But these two men, they found a way to do it. But there's a documentary about Steven Gerrard and his time at Liverpool.
Nah, bravo.
Thank
Bravo.
you.
Look at that.
And it goes into depth about the struggle of just this, what we're talking about, how hard it is to truly stay at a club for 20 years. And Steven talks about the weight of that being little like tangible on his shoulders until the moment that he won the Champions League. And then even after that, people still wanting more in this feeling of unbearable weight that you're holding the club up just simply by being there for so long. Maldini has even bigger respect for that in AC Milan because he did it for even longer.
At the academy, I think his own father did it, and then he's also doing it in the directorship as well for the club, and then he has his son doing it as well.
Yeah,
like
talk
it's
about
just
the perfect
it's
life.
just a legacy.
If I could live a life like that.
My next 2 center back pair, and I'm gonna go for a 4-back, but it's gonna be a little variation to it. Doing a little Barca style, maybe a little Barca
push
style.
One of those guys higher at some point.
Who knows? Maybe we're gonna go for a little controversial, maybe a little new times now. Sergio Ramos.
Okay.
And specifically 2018, 2019.
We
Virgil
just picked
Van
them
Dijk.
apart last week.
Van Dijk. I gotta go for Virgil Van Dijk.
Did you just say a specific year?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because in this specific year, he did not get dribbled back. He did not get dribbled past this whole year in the Premier League.
I have a defender on my team right now that has that going on.
And that's
he's not in my all-time.
And that's just class, man. Like what he did, what Virgil Van Dijk did in that time, brilliant. And I gotta go with the right back
I'm
for
surprised.
Dani Alves.
Color me surprised.
Dani Alves.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that.
And he's gonna be my right back, bombing up the right wing.
I kind of
gonna be going crazy, going that way.
But I can't have him in the 3-back. That's not gonna work.
It's all right.
I love Dani Alves. I love the way he played, and he's got the most trophies in history, right? So that's got to say something about his all-time ability. Everywhere he goes, he improves it.
But I gotta say, for me, like having the leadership of Sergio Ramos, like just like you said, the smartness of Maldini, and depending on how your coach likes to play, maybe if it's a 3 or a 4-back, and you could be that one. You could be that one fullback like Dani Alves that goes up and is also able to have the fitness to come back down. You are helping your team so much by just you adding another player into the second dimension of the field, or even the third line, if depending on how far you can go. But if you can add width for your team and give your team more players in the middle to be able to combine with, because of you being the furthest man on the far side, that's powerful. That gives your team something. And for me, that is something that I got to say in my defense. I love those things.
Yeah, no,
and I'll start with mine.
I still feel like my backline's better than yours.
It's okay.
Because, I mean, Ramos and Van Dijk are pretty ballsy decisions for an all-time 11. But, hey, if that's how you feel.
No, Ramos is a
can do
stepper. Ramos is stepper, and then Van Dijk's the backwards defender.
I understand. I mean, I'm just like thinking about it in the context of the conversation, which is all-time 11. I don't feel as if either of those players exist within
Well, it's
the
in
conversation.
my
I get it.
all-time
I get
11.
it. I get it.
Because this is gonna be the way that my team beats your team.
In an interesting point against your statement, I mean, you picked a player in a specific year, and like now that player is not even close to the same guy, and it's only 4 years later.
Just because he had an injury, though.
I get it.
He had what was it, like an ACL or something?
I understand that there are justificational reasons of why he's like deproved.
You didn't have to put it that way. Like, no, we didn't have any specifications about top class whether or center not back. We were talking about longevity of career.
And that season, he was incredible. But I just, not for me, and all for you. Go for it.
I'm gonna start with the midfielders.
Okay.
Since you started with the goalies and the defenders.
Just know I'm gonna only have 2 offenders because I'm gonna count my wingbacks as midfielders.
Fine.
In a 3-5-2.
Sure.
Okay.
That's all right.
All right.
So I've got 3 midfielders. And the first one has got to be N'Golo Kanté. That guy's an absolute legend.
I love that choice.
And for like specifically in my team, what I love about someone like a Kanté, it doesn't matter how big or small you are. It is, especially for that midfield position, it's how much you can run.
Yeah, it's ground covered.
And how much you can win the ball back.
And he was, by far, he covered the most ground in any football match. Like, his stats showed that.
Yeah.
And
won the most balls. And he won the most balls in most games.
Yeah.
And if you could do those 2 things from that position.
When he was with Chelsea, he was not only doing it on a week-in, week-out basis for Chelsea for years, he was doing it at the France international level. And that team was at the peak.
He won every competition.
And that team was at the peak of world football. So, like, and he was central to that midfield.
He won every single competition. For you to be able to be in the central midfield for every single competition.
I'm surprised where he is now.
He's in Al-Ittihad.
That's right. Yeah, I'm surprised that he's there, but hey.
For him to be able to win every single competition as the starting central midfielder, you're doing something right. And 100%. For me, that's top center defensive mid for me. And then I'm going to have two 8s. My first 8 has to be Toni Kroos. The way that he has played for Real Madrid and been a consistent starter. Toni Kroos,
I think that's a great choice.
Magic.
Yeah, I can't argue or say anything about that. He's not in mine, but
it's okay.
I just have the version before him is why.
And for me, I gotta go. Another one is gonna be Xavi. Xavi. I know it's
wow. I'm so happy for you.
But it's okay. I need a dribbler too. You know, I can't just have someone that's a passer. You know. I already have one of the best or the best passer in the game with Toni Kroos. I could have gone with a De Bruyne too. That'd have been kind of filthy. But going with a pure dribbler in the middle, that just means that I'm going to be able to have him combine with other players up top. That's going to be it's going to be filthy.
Okay.
How about I pass it over to you?
So you have in your midfield Kroos, Kanté, and
Xavi.
And you're playing a 4-3 so far.
4-3-3.
Okay. So in my midfield, right now I'm going to have to skip to 6 because I got 2 names on my mind and I can't figure it out. But the 8 is going to be Zinedine Zidane, which is why I kind of said I have the Toni Kroos before him. I just think there's a level of class that Zidane has that, I mean, is legendary.
Yeah, it's deadly.
And arguably Kroos is like there too now because he's been doing it for so long. It's just when you put those 2 names next to each other, like most people, like I have, gravitate towards Zidane. And it's the legendary status of what he did. But then when you look back at Kroos's goals and the things that he's contributed to Madrid as well, it's like, that's a pretty good argument there. I don't know if Kroos has a international World Cup with Germany
Of course he does.
in
2014 when he beat
yeah.
Messi.
So he is comparable, and it's like between the two, I'm just gonna have to go with the generational one.
Of course, but
Zidane.
and I just the thing for me that I liked about Kroos was the dead ball specialist. For him to also add that level to the game is just it's deadly.
In front of Zidane, I'm gonna have Johan as the 10, and the true 10 at that. Like massively creative.
See, I wanted you to say like Ozil. I was waiting for that pick, to be honest.
Sure, I mean, but Ozil did what Cruyff did. There's just two different generational 10s. Like I was blessed enough to be able to watch Ozil play both at Madrid and Arsenal. And I loved everything that player did. And you can even look back at some of his assists and goals for Arsenal. And he's so creative. It's so fun to watch. Johan, though, for me, as I've stated before, is like mi idola. How do you say it? Idol in Espanol?
Your idol, tu ídolo.
Tu ídolo?
Mi ídolo.
Mi ídolo. Like, for me, is the person that I probably like love the most in football, or if not, he's the second closest, because the one I love most is in my starting 11. And I guess I'll transition there, which is Thierry Henry. So on my wings, I'm gonna have my wing backs is gonna be Cristiano Ronaldo and Thierry Henry. And,
no, that's bold.
And Cristiano Ronaldo is really like, okay, maybe like didn't belong in the lineup, but does. I couldn't find somebody else that could do damage like he can on the outside spaces. And the only other person is my all-time favorite, which is Thierry Henry. Now you have to understand, both of those guys could play here, 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 or here. The two striker positions or the two wing-back positions. Both of those guys are known for both of those things. But I still have to fit Lionel in. I have an open 6 position and 2 open striker positions, which I'll wait to. So what's going to end up happening in my lineup is it's going to change a bit, and everybody's going to drop 1. So Zidane's going to come to the 6, Johan's going to come into the 8, and Messi's going to take the true 10. Then I'm going to have Henry on the left and Cristiano on the right, and occasionally swing those two because they both like to play both-footed. And that leaves me with my 2 strikers that are left. So
and a 6. So how about?
No, I've dropped the line. So Zidane is sitting at 6, Johan's sitting at 8.
So you're just going for like a really, really attacking. How about you end with your 2 strikers?
Yeah, okay. So then in my 2 strikers, the 3 players that are up for those positions would be Pele, Maradona, and R9, Ronaldo. And based on my lineup of what I've already kind of picked, I'm going to go with the Brazilian tag team duo of Pele and R9. Because I don't think Maradona is necessary.
If you have Messi.
If I have Messi at the 10. And I love the Brazilian connection.
Now that's a good point right there.
And I also love the Brazilian connection in that area of the field. The highest area. Like you see Marcelo at the left back and you see him do his thing in those areas and it creates transition. But if those two are doing their thing up there themselves, they could score goals. Just those two. Imagine Cristiano and Thierry backing them up with a Messi underneath them and the smarts of Johan and Zidane to sit in the midfield to balance. For me, this team is borderline unplayable unless you find a way to break through the gaps. Like 3-5-2, if you're playing a 4-3-3, if your wingers sit high and wide and you can find them, we'll play with a lot of the game with our backs to your goal, which is the opposite of what you want with a highly offensive team like the one that I've created.
Because you don't want to be on the counter and then have these guys waste their energy going defensively to offensively, especially with the wingers that I'm going to be.
But the difference is, I can handle counter in the wide spaces is because I have Thierry and Cristiano. Now, people used to say, "Well, Cristiano doesn't defend." Well, that's not true.
And
Just
I don't
later
feel
in his
like
career, he gets back.
I don't feel like Thierry would defend either.
He does. They both.
And they're gonna be starting out as wing backs. I just don't see that.
Yeah.
I don't see that like from either Cristiano and his ego.
No, I do. I think that both Henry and Cristiano played so long through the game that they knew wherever they were, they had a job and a role. Thierry wasn't known as a lazy striker or a lazy winger. This dude ran. He ran all the time. Cristiano was known as that in his early days at Manchester United, and then when he got to Real Madrid, I wouldn't say that he was at like a force that was just allowed to stay up and attack all the time. Like they
just depended with which manager. With Mourinho, no, but with like in his later years with Zidane, yeah, why not? Because he was the guy, right?
And also behind him, they were stacked as can be, which I'm counting on in this team.
Yeah, but with like you're with 3 guys.
Wait, no, Zidane is with them.
Okay, 4.
Yeah,
with 4 guys.
You have 4 too.
I have 4 and Kanté.
Yeah, but if
Toni Kroos.
So you play defensively, I'll play offensively, and we'll watch a match go strike. But you still have strikers to pick.
And that's
you
going to
have
be
3
exciting.
spots for that.
That's going to be a good one because I'm already thinking about if Dani Alves is going to be going up on the wing. On my right wing, it's going to be Messi, but you already know Messi's going to be, you already know, walking around, not pressing. It's okay, Messi. Don't worry.
Henry and Maldini got him clamped.
No way. No chance. It's okay, though. And then on the left wing, best believe, El Bicho.
El Bicho.
El Bicho. CR7. Cristiano Ronaldo, melhor jogador de todo el mundo. Got to be there.
Of course.
Just tearing it up, Cafu. He's going to be 1 head higher than Cafu. Going to be flying over Cafu when he tries to win a header from him. Just goals galore in the back post. And through the middle, this is a tough one for me. This is a really tough one. Because I can go with...
You're going to have to rely on this guy to do some things on his own.
Yeah. He has to be able to hold up the ball from Beckenbauer. Not let him be bossed around. I don't know if I can rely on Haaland for this one.
Oh, I don't think so.
Haaland can't do that.
I don't think so. I would take Beckenbauer versus Haaland. Beckenbauer all day.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because whenever you see Haaland get like pushed around,
he seems to find his way out of the game.
Yeah.
And like
he buckles.
Some players have been finding that out recently and been giving him a little bit more, and it's been changing the way that he's experienced success, you know?
So then you know what? I got to go for the GOAT of all strikers. I swear, this guy, whenever he was put at the 9, like you knew that he was going to give you a performance. You knew that this guy was going to make sure that you got the result whenever it happened.
I can think of a lot of names.
Yeah?
Yeah. One of them I hate just through and through.
You know what? I was going to say a meme one, but I got to go with the real one I'm actually thinking about for this.
What's that?
His name is Olivier Giroud, my friend.
Oh!
Olivier Giroud. That man, one of the most underrated players in the whole game.
I sent you clips of his first season, huh? Recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Don't mind it. And what about Giroud against Beckenbauer? He's going to be putting in that big butt in Beckenbauer, and he's going to hold the ball. Hey, Messi. And then Messi going to go.
My favorite thing about Giroud as a striker is that he can interplay, he can strike, he can go one-on-one, he can volley, he can header, he can
finish.
Yeah, all across the board finisher, but all-time finisher? Questionable.
I'm going for my team. I'm going for what my team needs.
Yeah, okay.
My team needs a holding 9. And I was going to go with my man, Divock Origi, just for the clutchness, the clutchness, the big cojones that he has in those big moments. But I got to go for the World Cup winner. I
think my team's got yours pegged.
No, it's okay. And you know what? I hope that there's like a software like in the future where we could put these teams together.
We could do this on FIFA.
No.
Yeah, and just simulate the game. You could just pick 2 teams, like put the players in each, and then simulate the match.
If we could do that, we'll do that, and we'll see which team wins.
That would be sick.
That'd be awesome. I hope that can FC24 if you can do
You
that.
have to spend hundreds of dollars on all the cards. And get them
Oh, don't even bring that up. That scares me. And those are our all-time 11s. If you want to get in on this debate, tell us which team was better. Tell us in the comments. We're gonna have hopefully our social media manager make some graphics for this, make it real nice.
And I know I picked some more older generational players. I had a little trouble at the 6, and like if I had to pick a 6 that was playing now for my all-time 11, I'd go with like a Rodri. But like I guess like thinking about it now,
no Boozy?
No. No. I'm really excited when I watch Rodri play as a player, and I think like when I look at all-time 11, I'm thinking in the longevity of a playing career. And I really like it's.
You're not thinking about how that person will benefit or hurt the team.
I am. I'm just thinking about their career as a whole, and it's really hard to pick on a player that's still playing now because their career as a whole hasn't come to an end, and so realistically, it's still subjective based upon the things that they're going to do. And well, none of us know the future, so like with Van Dijk's situation, if we had this conversation in 2019, maybe he'd be on both of our lists. But now it's 2023, and for me, there's no chance. And that's why I look at it in the longevity of the career of the player, of the entire whole of the career. But yeah, there's a good all-time 11, and I think my team's got yours in the bag.
Nah.
The only distinct change I might have to make during the game is switch Henry and Cristiano. And just go, and then just come in on you.
What about one super sub if you had to quick fire?
Super sub.
I already said mine. It's Origi. He's the
really?
The superest of subs.
It's Origi!
That was not how it was, but sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it was. More like. Shout out Liverpool.
If I had to pick a player, I'm gonna go with, like I said, his name earlier is Steven Gerrard.
Game changer.
Just to have somebody there also like a Maldini, like as a leader, and that could probably play in the 6 or 8 role if I needed him to. Gerrard. I feel he only made one mistake really in his whole career, and it was a Premier League losing slip. But besides that, for 20 years, he was
Thanks for bringing
dog.
It up. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, that's Liverpool's darkest day. Well, that or the stadium stands collapsing. But
how about we focus on
those are both dark days.
New teams now.
Yeah, sure.
And what
I'm in a dark phase,
and how to deal and start with new teams. How about we talk about that?
Yeah.
You're dealing with a varsity team. I'm dealing with a JV team.
Some things need to happen right away. And originally I thought, well, team structure should come first, meaning like, okay, how do we set up for set pieces? And then what do we do on throw-ins? And how do we formation set ourselves in certain situations? And why are we going to play this way? Now, a few years down the road, I start a little different than I did then. It's more experimental, whereas in the first few weeks, which in the high school season you don't really have, we hit the ground running right away.
If you guys do. I'm lucky that I have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Before my first game,
we've been training for 1 week, and I have 2 games next week, and half the squad isn't prepared to play because of the Rule 600, which just clearly states that if you're still playing club, you can't play high school yet. If your final high school or final club game ends, then you're cleared to start your high school season. And then the same for club. You cannot start your club until your final game of high school season later in the winter. And so starting the team off with such a short period of time.
And not the full team either.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say in the ideal situation, this is how I'd start the team. Not in the way that I'm actually doing it now in an accelerated process.
How about you talk about it like that? And I can talk about the ideals, because I feel like I have an ideal situation where I have time before my first game.
So I guess like in the very first week,
in
uh,
your accelerated schedule?
it's player ability identification.
Mm.
So for the entire first week, they're doing things like gauntlets or circuits where they have to get over the high hurdles, then slalom through some poles, pick up a ball, play a 1-2, receive it again, and finish 20 yards away. That shows me as they go through that circuit if they're very SAQ, they're good body control, if they can receive a touch after having to move their body well, if they can look up and finish further apart, which highlights if they can make longer passes well or not. And usually you don't want lines in practice. So in a perfect circuit, you have multiple gauntlets set up. So you're going to roughly need 3. So there's about 5 players per, right? Or maybe 4. There's a 22, 27 man roster, whatever it is. And they're constantly having to do actions and they know and they're moving from circuit to circuit. In that state for 1 week, I do all of things like that and then they play. Things like that and then they play. And I try to say as little as possible. I just watch. It's player ability identification. I'm looking for what do I have in this group, who is good at what, how do they speak to one another. I'm really absorbing the here and now of this group that has been a correlation of where they've come from before me. And that's going to tell me a lot about how then I need to step in and mold and morph and change this group. I can't understand how to move forward if I didn't understand where they came from. It's not so important in the sense that I'm highly focused on it, but it is very important to understand where they're at now. And so for the first week, that's what I do. It's all player identification, ability identification. Then this week, it's the second week. This is structural. We play this formation. We have these players in that formation because I've identified abilities now that make you fit this place better,
This role for
this
the
role
team.
for the team, and the experimental process begins. Because we're on an accelerated process, and I just did this with the club team this season as well, with the young boys, the 11, you have to start the experiments right away in game and treat the game as practice. And so that's where the formational experimental zone starts. And I'll start playing players in positions in that formation that they showed their abilities in the gauntlet and circuit in the first week that I feel fits them best. And there will be learning curves in that, growing pains. People might be misplaced. I might have to continue to mold and change and find the right mix. Sometimes it's a matter of the formation as a whole based on the pieces you have.
Of course.
So you got to change into a shape that fits the people you have better. And that's all upon the next the second and third week is to experiment.
Because you already have games.
Yeah, because we're right into it. And so the experiment begins now.
Yeah.
Where then it's like, okay, I think this is how we'll sit best. And we'll watch and see what happens. And it's not about rating these moments so high in matter. It's about being very analytical and reflective of what's happening in order to find where do your pieces fit best. Then we can start talking about, well, naturally, this would have been one of the first things I want to implement. Then we can start talking about all of the proper pregame, during game, and post game behaviors. So, like activation, dialing in activation probably is going to happen a little late because things are taking precedent over that right now.
100%.
And then
And the activation can be done in the
players
game.
know how to warm up their bodies at 15, 16, 17. Ideally, I would do it right off the bat, but it's not the most pressing point right now. So I'm not. Then we get into like the match itself, and I want them to understand what to do and how to move in set pieces, where to be. So when we get throw-ins, when we get corners, when we get goal kicks and build-out shapes, all of those need to look a certain way for me, or else we're not doing it right. But I can't expect that from them right away, and I can't expect them from it like if we're working on it on week 3, by week 4 to get it done. No, the double experimental process begins now. Who fits best where? If we play this way in these moments, who handles those jobs best? And so you sit in the first 3 weeks of season, or preseason, I should call it, in this very analytical and experimental state. But you have to set these guidelines on what it is and what it isn't, what we need to do in certain moments, what we can't. And that's what week 3 is all about, is how do we need to be.
After you've seen them already in a game setting,
Mm-hmm.
and now that you can already make these adjustments, I think that's a very generic, and like that's the way that you have to do it, especially since you're already going into the games and you don't
Ideally,
know.
I would start with morals and values of what it means to me to be a part of this team, then move to activations and set pieces, then move to set pieces. Then move to formations and things of structure, and then through that process, understand my players' abilities. But that's when you have so much more time to prepare.
No, it's
When
beautiful for me to be like the first head coaching gig that I have at a high school, for me to have this time before our first game, which is going to be in 3 weeks. And I have our first meeting today just as a team where we're going to be talking about exactly that.
yeah,
Who am I, first of all? Like, what am I coming from? And I'm pretty much setting the tone that if you have any personal question about me, there is a whole season to ask me. So relax. There's no need to ask me any personal questions today. You could ask me when we have all of this time as a group together.
yeah,
The
I think it's a
second
good point to set your morals and values.
the second point I'm going to have is how to represent the school. Because us being a private school, us being a school that is religious as well, we have certain standards
Yeah,
for our own boys and how we behave. Because if we are living by quote unquote by this faith that we have, and we're not living, if we believe in it and we're not living by it, do we really believe? Are
is
we really doing it?
is it all boys' school?
Yes, that as well.
That's challenging.
No, it's amazing. It's an actual it's how I describe it, and how it's also described at the school as a brotherhood.
It's challenging. I lived on the campus of Barca. It's an all-male school. It's challenging.
Why?
Well, because from 14 to 18, there's a lot of social experiences that exist with the opposite gender, and
Mm-hmm.
not going to a multiple gender school is a challenge because you're almost somewhat not removed but separated from those experiences.
To be honest, I didn't see it like that at all when I was there, because I enjoyed being with my friends, and like those are the guys that I created memories with and created memories outside of school. And like how I want to paint it for my team and my own standard for my team is we do everything together. We
I've heard those
whenever
words before.
whenever we play pause. We
Yeah,
do everything together. Pause. And no matter that's in a practice setting, in going out and we have pizza together setting, everything that we want to be doing is as a group. And as the Germans said, alle gemeinsam. It's together.
I try to get everybody to leave the field at the same time. Hey, make sure you're carrying something. Hey, don't take off without us. Hey, we'll go
That's
all day.
great.
And it's hard because people need to go places. I got to go. Well, then tell me and go. And you've told me I'm letting you go. But the rest of us, you're here. We're walking out together. Everything should be that way.
And the only way for a team to succeed is by doing everything together. So one of the main things I'm going to be saying in the meeting is, guess what, boys? Everything that we do together, no matter that be winning, losing, celebrating, being upset, like we all feel the same, because we're all. This is the next level that a boys' school gets.
You
We're all
said
brothers.
you said today's your first team meeting.
Yes, sir.
So you should also set your team goals for the year.
Oh, that's one of the. I'm going to ask 2 questions in this team meeting. The first question that I'm going to let marinate for the whole meeting is, what do you guys want to get out of the season? And the second question I'm going to ask right after that one is, how do you score a goal from kickoff? Just a random question. I was gonna bring my board. That was gonna have to wait.
We have plenty of boards here, though.
No, but that's true.
Yeah,
But I like the magnetic board.
yeah. But
But I like asking that question because I want to see if the boys have the capability to know how our goals scored.
do you know what the definition of a team is?
What is the definition of a team?
A collective group of people that share the similar or one goal. So how do you start a team with the best foot forward? Is you get the team to decide on what that one shared goal is on the day one. And the hardest part about this, and I've done it multiple times, this is when I do have time, is you're sitting in front of a group of teenage boys and you're asking them, what do you want to accomplish with this year as a team this year? And the number one thing is always, well, we want to win league and CIF, right? That's always going to be said, but you have to get them to break that goal down and set goals within that.
What's it gonna take?
Long term, mid term, short term.
What's it gonna take?
The hardest part about this whole experience is not to lead them to the water as best as you can, to have them critically think their way to this, to make them feel as if, and it is, their goal that they created, that they want to accomplish all together. And then all year round, you use those things that they put, long term, mid term, short term, as developmental tools and focus tools and intensity tools.
And pushing them.
To push, to pull, to grow, to teach, to set expectation.
The bar.
All of these things, they come from that one conversation. And if, like my boys, coach, we want to win league, we want to win CIF. If we win CIF this year, can we cut your hair? Sure. The whole team on day 2 was like on the same page with this. Like, we want to win CIF, coach, and if we do, we're cutting your hair. And I go, well, in order to win CIF, that would mean that we have to handle league, right? Well, yeah, we have to win league as well. That's our goal. So, okay, well, I'm looking at last season's record, and I pulled up all the teams, and there's wins and losses, and a lot more heavier on the loss side is, what are we going to do here and now to change these results then?
That's a great question. I love that question.
And so they aren't just spitting a goal out from the back of their mind randomly. They're actually thinking and critically thinking about, what does that goal actually mean when you break it down? When you have the players do it themselves, the meaning becomes exponentially larger for the team.
And I'm also
and that's
going
where the
to,
definition of the team
I
comes
wanted to let that question marinate in the beginning so that they understood what I expect of them first, and then okay, so now that I finished talking, it's your guys' turn. What is going to be your guys' goal now that you know what I am planning on for this season?
I would do your best to flip it. Don't lead them to the water until you have to. That's what my personal experience would tell you, is see who your boys are without your opinion first, and gather information in that manner. And then once you've given them the space to collectively think about what this is, then you can share, well, this is how I feel about it. And then this is where we meet as a team then. This is what we're trying to accomplish. The reason I say that is because when you give them the power first, you give them the space to critically think through what it is they want to accomplish without your opinions or goals influencing those decisions. And then you can influence them after they've said. The hardest part about this, though, is I've had 13-year-old boys, they're just moving to high school, whatever it is, and they're silent because they're too shy. They don't know what they want. Or one person says, I want to win the championship. The other goes, well, realistically, and so they have to come to a conclusion. And the hardest part about that moment is zipping it and just letting them, because you want to be like, God, no, we should be top of the league, or we should be. It goes inside of you because you want to win. You're a coach and you want this team to succeed, but you want them to come to it.
That's a good point. So then
becomes
that's
empowering.
First, I guess the reason why I wanted to let it marinate was so that they could actually think about it after.
You can still let them marinate on that question. After, you haven't given them anything, right? By asking, what do you guys really want to get out of this?
Of course, it's gonna get asked first, but I don't want them to answer it immediately because of the fact that everyone says I want to win league, and that was my reasoning why I wanted to let it sit and have them answer it at the end, so that they could really weigh the options of what it takes versus what we actually are going to get out of the season and what we want to get out of it.
I would ask the question and give them a collaboration period of time, 5 minutes, because rather than waiting and simmering through the whole meeting, this should be a collaborative effort on goal sharing. And for them to marinate on it, fine. If you give them the time at the end, fine. But you want to refrain from giving them influence during the time so that they could come up with their own, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
And it's like
that makes sense.
when you give them the question, you say just marinate on it. They'll be in their heads all personally marinating on it. And when you bring it up at the end, the things that you said during might have influenced those things they were marinating on and changed.
which is exactly that was my purpose to influence that. But I do understand
Just
your
flip
point.
when
I
you
do
do that.
understand your point because you don't want to be the one influencing that, because then it's like, is it really their goal? That's a good point when
And
you
then you
bring
lose
it
the
up that way.
emphasis in
Exactly.
its empowerment when
Exactly.
you need to use it during the season. And here's the other experience that I've had is they aren't capable of collaborating to the correct idea. And you have to now lead them to the water because they just, as a group, maybe they're not there yet. They're not able to collaborate with one another to come up with a shared goal. So you have to help them. Well, like I said earlier, then put the goals on the board and break it down into midterm, long term, and short term goals. Because then they can look at these things as tangible efforts, like a halfway point through the season. We want to be first and second. Like these are points to break down the goal itself, and we say we're on the right track, right? Okay, then that means we need to have 95% attendance for the entire season. Then that's a short term immediate goal within it that's going to accomplish the long term. And like that's when you have to lead them to the water, that's a method that I found effective in that conversation at the beginning of the year because it really does give you ammunition to influence the boys in a positive manner for the future season that is to come. And if I had the time to do that in my own program, that would have been the first thing that we'd done.
Yeah.
But I have to do that while I'm passing out training jerseys and jerseys, match day jerseys, and running the session. And
yeah, when not everyone's in it, and I'm
cool.
literally gonna have these kids on yoga balls bouncing and fully focused, and it's gonna be nice for me and for my assistant as well.
The yoga balls for all us ADHD boys.
He knows. See, you know.
Yeah, I got it.
That's the advantage about the boys' school. See, it's all tailored to all boys.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't agree with that.
There you go. So it's gonna be good for
I went
me,
to a public school. There were women there,
and
it was
also
amazing.
my assistant to be able to also start getting a rapport with the team by him also saying his points. And his point is going to be, especially for us being a JV and having a higher team above us, your reputation and your chances of making the higher team start right now. Like, quote unquote, with your chance of making it to the next team. So what are you going to do compared to all of your teammates for you to make it to the next team? And it doesn't just happen with what you do on the field.
Oh, no.
Off the field comes too.
Yeah, and it starts with them. It should always start with them. That's where I look at my accelerated process and I'm concerned because, well, it doesn't start with them. I have to literally set the path right away. And then that becomes an issue later in the experimental zone.
The issues are going to come right at your face. Like, they're not going to be seen over a course of time. It's going to be, I got this issue.
And there's going to be a consequence
from a game.
Yeah, a goal is going to be scored.
For sure. And what's good for me is so this week is going to be the varsity tryouts, but we still get time to practice with our team. And this time we're only going to be doing 1 hour, little games, little team bonding. And we're going to have little competitions where if one team wins, we're going to be encouraging teams to celebrate and start building this team culture of, hey, we're going to win, we're going to lose, we're going to be upset, we're going to be happy together.
Yeah, I love
And we're going to be winning and we're going to be enjoying ourselves while we're there and having fun. And that's the main goal for the first week after the meeting. And this is without any pressure of games. This is going to be pure enjoyment, but also the detail that I put in for this, especially this preseason, I added themes for each of those game days. So let's say for game day 1, it's gonna be possession games, and it's gonna be focusing on the reason, one of our game principles, which will be fluidity with the ball. Because I noticed, oh my gosh, when you have a team that doesn't play with the ball, it is annoying as a coach, and you almost feel at fault because you think, how come you can't do it? Because I thought we've been practicing it the whole time. And then it comes the game and it's like, is this really my team? Even a little bit of like embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like how did
Can't
I
we have the
set
ball? We can have the ball.
how did I set this team up this week for them to play this way? And so I want to have a team that is fluid with the ball, that isn't afraid to make the mistakes. But when they make a mistake, this is when the second concept comes in. And then day 2 is going to be recovery. So it's going to be 2v1 games, transition games, stuff that is going to be fast, high tempo. And I'm going to be setting these bigger game principles in my game model in games, and hopefully giving them little bits and pieces of the communication that I'm going to start using this year in these games.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when you talk about like when a team isn't able to play and move the ball with the right tempo, that maybe you feel somewhat at fault as a coach sometimes. But the reality is that some teams, even when they're practicing it, aren't learning it. You know, some people need to be told in detail why the solution is best and when to do it, and then experience it in a positive manner before they learn it. And I would argue that that's one of my greatest traits when it comes to ball movement and fluidity of ball movement and tempo, is getting into the details of each situation to help a player understand how to find the correct action that leads to more fluidity. And I think that like it's just not always the manner of always practicing it. Sometimes other people need a different way to learn, and they sometimes need this
Sometimes
detailed
visual,
explanation.
sometimes professional, maybe even like a 3D one, interactive, where they're doing it as well. Like,
and other players sometimes aren't built for that fluidity, and they design to play in specific areas that need hold up, that need a pause, that they don't play in that manner. They have to be taught how. And then you have to work through each situation with this player, like, okay, well, for this team, I need you to think that this is where we need that ball to end up, and I need you to play in this manner because of that. And it might be something completely new to them, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks of practicing it, their fluidity goes up. But it comes through the result of many mistakes and many moments for you to be able to say, hey, listen, in that moment, you should be looking at these solutions.
And them wanting to also accept it and also learn from it. Because if they don't want to, first of all, if they're not willing to learn or willing to change, then I'm sorry, but it's a lost cause. Because if they're not going to do either or, then why are they there? And that's another thing I'm going to be talking about in the meeting today is, look, this for me and for us, I'd say, is what we do. And our reputation is based off of how well we do with our teams. And so if we are coming in at 100% preparing before the session, talking with the other coaches about what we can do better, trying to be better people, like at the end of the day, for our team, and then we don't get that reciprocated, it's frustrating.
Absolutely.
And so I want to set that tone as well and say, hey, you know what? If I'm doing this and he is doing this and we're putting our time together for you guys, there's got to be a two-way street. Because if you're not going to be giving as well, you can go somewhere else. And we have players that are willing to do that.
Or you could just not play here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point.
You can go to school here but not play here.
Exactly.
If you don't want to be part of this entity.
And I'm going to do that since day one. Because I don't want people whining and complaining about, oh, well, it's because nothing. I'm going to set the tone since the beginning. And if it's not what you want, it's okay. you can go somewhere else.
Yeah, a reputation is incredibly important in football. As a coach, um, as a player as well, but I think as a coach is particularly on my mind now. And like after 9 to 10 years of coaching, I've found that I've kind of positioned myself in a niche reputation of coaching. And the niche is not based upon winning as a success. The niche is based upon teaching and growing the young human into a proper being, and then also to have a team that seems to turn face into negativity to positivity. Those are the niches in which I've focused my reputation on improving. And so success might look different for my team in this short term period. Like one of the things I've said to them will define my and our success is when we come into games now and we're experiencing negative situations and the conversation, the dialect is positive, not for me, for themselves and for the parents that are in the stands. So we can be proud of the initial changes we're making for this team. So our success actually has nothing to do with the board in itself right now, the scoreboard. It has everything to do with their interactions with one another. How do we speak? How do we turn this whole thing into a positive environment right off the bat? And if we can succeed that before preseason is over, then I know what I'm doing here is a part of that reputation that I've designed and built for myself. And then we can focus on the longevity of it, right? Now we all understand how this is supposed to be, how coach wants it. Let's start finding the best pieces for the right places and how to play in those moments to succeed and score more goals and get on the board in the right manner. Like it's a long-term project for me, which is rare for me to say, but it is. And so we're going to start from square one. The reputation that I uphold as a coach, which is none of my teams will ever turn their spears against each other. You'll never see it, you'll never hear it, and when they do, they'll be with me on the bench because I'd rather have a weaker player on the field who's positive and successful with the rest than have the poison or toxic one on the field holding everybody back. Then that portrays itself to the parents and they think, wow, he's doing something great here, even though they're losing. Look at how they're working as a
Oh,
team.
that's going to be a luxury for me to have, to be able to put someone on the bench,
Yeah.
because there was times, I'm not going to get too much into detail, but there was times where I didn't have subs for some teams. And when you don't have subs and some players disrespect
Attitude,
or
effort.
yeah, whatever, you name it. There's so many things. It's hard. It is hard. And so for me to actually have that luxury and be like,
It's
guys,
never good when the player feels entitled that way, is it?
ho ho ho. No,
It's
no,
never
no.
good. I
No,
can't think
no,
of a
no.
single situation where that entitlement leads to a positive outcome for the player and coach experience. Both. I think that entitlement is quite a toxic and poisonous behavior. And anytime that you're a player and you feel that way in an environment, you should reevaluate and look in the mirror because you're probably off base somewhere. No player should feel entitled that way.
Finalizing the talk, I wanted to end on something very interesting that you had talked about, that you had first encountered in FC Barcelona, Arizona.
Yeah, this was an interesting concept. Even today, I still don't fully grasp the solution to this concept, as if it's ever growing or ever changing. But like I arrived to the Barcelona Residency Academy, and you want to improve the spirit of competition. So you every time there's a small sided game of any sort, 4 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, even a larger sided game, there's usually the losing team should have a repercussion, a
I see.
punishment, a
It's easy to
consequence.
say punishment, but I like repercussion.
Repercussion is the best word for it, but I would call it a punishment, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
grow up as a player and you lose the match, and your coach goes, "You owe us 5 suicides." And we owed 5 suicides, we lost. Or you're growing up and you lost the match, and he goes, "Oh, you owe us 20 push-ups." And, okay, we lost 20 push-ups. Or it could be, "Oh, you have to collect all the balls," or you're taking down practice, or there were all these different ways of how you could utilize the loss to increase the competitive spirit in a punishment moment as for losing. And I got to Barca and just like on, how do you say, autopilot, a team lost the game and the other one went celebrating. And I go, "Hey guys, give me 10. 10 what, coach? 10 push ups." And they start doing push ups. Like, not a thing, right? La Masia director comes over at the time, Juan Mena, and one of the most cognitively aware coaches I've ever been on the sideline with. And I mean, he spent 40 years plus in multiple countries with the Barcelona program, working with teams all over the world. And just to explain how great this guy was, if I was working in a 90-minute session to get one behavior out of the boys, and it took me 90 minutes to get that behavior out of them, Mena could come to the practice and get it out of them in 10. And he would spend 6 of them, those minutes, talking to them. They're not moving, just talking. And then in the next 4, bam, they're moving like perfectly. So he just comes from experience. He's the same guy that would say something along the lines of, when you're watching football, it doesn't mean you're seeing anything. And the longer that you watch football, the more that you'll see, Zach. And that was like, for me, what do you mean? I watch it every day, all the time. And he goes, yeah, but add 40 years to that. And then tell me what you'll be able to see in every moment. And I got it, you know? And so when he came over and he saw the players doing push-ups, he looks at me and he goes, why are they being punished this way? And he used it in that very negative connotation of the word punished. And I go, well, they lost, and I felt like, you know, I had a little incentive to win and give them a few push-ups. And he goes, what is a push-up? It's a workout. It's like, does it benefit your players or does it harm them? It makes them stronger, so it would benefit them. And he goes, and in the future of these young boys' lives, should they be doing push-ups just in their everyday life? Like, to naturally better themselves? Like, absolutely. Like, that is something that any kid can do in their bedroom every night, do 100 and slowly gain strength. Of course, that's a healthy action. He goes, so then why would you ever make it a punishment?
Phew.
And I was like, yo. Stunned as I am now when I still think about it. Like, yo. Okay, so then instead of saying, why wouldn't I, right? The brain turns to solutions and say, well, then what do we do? How do we find something that works as a repercussion or a consequence of the loss, but emphasizes a increase in competitive spirit, but also not a negative behavior or attitude towards what something you should do? And he's like, that's the question, isn't it? And so he left it open, and he was that kind of guy. He derived critical thought out of people. He he would have conversations that were designed in order for you to leave him like pondering things. And that was mine. Like, how do I ponder that? So I spent probably a year watching all the other 10 coaches in their different punishment sequences, from sprints with the ball to passing lanes to juggling to all kinds of things. I'm pushing the goals back to my favorite, which was theater. It's a coach named Dan Antunes, one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. And he was a player coach, meaning he played pro, came into coaching, and that's how he started his career. And he would sometimes make the losing team put on a play when they lost. So, like, I did this at my high school last week, and they had to do Romeo and Juliet for 90 seconds. And it was the winning team picked that play for the losing team, and they were embarrassed to do it, but everybody was cracking up and laughing. And with the brand new team on week 1, it was the perfect little icebreaker to get us all just like, all right, let's do this.
A family group.
And there was a consequence, a repercussion of the loss that added to our social affective behaviors and our camaraderie as a team. Now, I'm right now currently doing jump squats as consequences for losses as well. And here's the thing, Mena probably wouldn't be very proud of that because, again, it's a physical action that you want players doing to improve their person. But in my mind, what I'm trying to do is put them at an even bigger disadvantage for the next round for losing, so that their legs are just a bit heavier, and that's going to have to turn into an internal motivation to push harder, to not take another punishment, to have that snowball on you throughout the session. Because in a game, that's exactly how it can feel when 1, 2, 3, 4 things don't go your way. The snowball effect starts to happen. And how do you cut that off and turn momentum?
Go back to one of our reels. We talked about that.
Right? And so that's where I say, okay, well, then I want to make the punishment, the consequence, the repercussion, something that puts them at more of a disadvantage. And sometimes the theater isn't that, and it has to be physical. And the reason I started this out with, is I'm still pondering it, is finding successful ways to give consequence to improve competitive spirit, but not disrupt the idea of what is positive and negative for the health of this person, became such an incredible challenge that even 4 or 5 years later after the conversation, every time I walk on the field and that moment comes up, I'm not only watching and reflecting on my own decisions, I'm watching everybody else's. And it's something I've become acutely aware to see how everybody's doing it. Because realistically, there's a huge improvement to be found there, and that's what Mena was saying. He wasn't saying that he knew what it was. He was just saying, I do know when I think about it in depth, these are the things you should be considering, and this should lead you to an answer. So for me, it's new experiments, right? And you talk about being together. All right. Well, the losing team has to do all of the little things, pick up the cones, get all the balls off the field, and collect the pennies and loop them. Those are all meticulous tasks. And then the winning team, all they have to do is move the goals off the grass over to the side and make sure they're locked. It's everybody's helping together put this practice away. But the losing team had the meticulous job, and they had to cover more ground. They had to do more things. And the winning team also had to participate in doing this.
Well, just something light.
But
and as a group, especially, it turns out light.
Another interesting consequence within this moment that I've made is if you choose to play neutral in any possession game, you also choosing to take part in the consequence at half percentage. This means that if currently my young 9-year-olds are doing 10 box squats and the yellow team lost, but you played neutral, you owe us 5. And the reasoning to that is when you play in neutral, they're picking it as young kids to run less, to defend, not defend, but play with the ball. A lot of the time, that is why those 2 first hands go up when you ask who wants to play neutral. Their initial thought is, I don't want to defend, not I want to play with the ball.
Yeah.
And so in order to balance the workload in which they're trying to avoid, I demand a consequence for choosing. Now, in Mena's world, that's probably negative, right? To say, well, he likes to play with the ball, and maybe not negative is too strong, but he's saying, consider this, Zach. You might want to consider this more in depth, because does the neutral deserve that? How are we inciting critical thought or behaviors?
He doesn't not deserve it either,
right?
And so I think that's fair.
This is, like we said before, soccer is gray, right? It's not black and white. But this was Mena painting out the black and whites within the gray to show how do you think about it when you approach that moment. And it's an ever-changing, ever-growing topic, because as I coach longer and longer and longer, new and new consequences, repercussions come into play into my brain that just make more sense than the push-ups that was doing in my first 5 years of coaching on autopilot. Why? Because my coach made me do push-ups. And that could be really a negative generational teaching that's continued without any real thought put into it. And so when Mena approached it to me, I thought that's something I could really sink my teeth into and try to improve, because it is gray, and give everything you're doing with your players and your teams that kind of detail and analysis. You'll find some amazing things.
If any players were watching this, if there's any punishments that you absolutely hate or you enjoy for some weird reason, drop them in the comments. Let us know.
That would be an interesting thing to see. We'd love
to learn, and maybe start the conversation right there in the comment section. This has been Pitchside Prospects. Zach, where can we find you, man?
Yeah, you can find me at ZJ Kaizen, or you can find us currently at Train Zone Sports. You can also find us on YouTube as Train Zone Sports with spaces, and on Spotify as well.
Not with spaces. It's actual spaces in between the words.
Train, space, zone, space, zone.
If you want to find me, I'm at Coach JCKM or at JC Brewer M. This was a good episode, and
this has been Pitchside Prospects.
The final thing that before we sign off, we would like to have a player being interviewed in the next episode or in the next few episodes. So if you'd like to be interviewed,
please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to get you on set and do a podcast and kind of pick the player's brain and perspective about certain aspects of the game. And that will keeping it interesting and keeping it different. And then hopefully other podcast interviewees will be on as well, not just players, other coaches, and we look to continue to expand our podcast into further avenues.
I lied. That wasn't the final thing.
What's the final thing?
The final thing was we need to know about last episode's backdrop, because we're in the original backdrop, as you can tell. We added some scarves to this time, but we want to know how you like the full scarves in the background from last time.
Yeah, you're gonna have to put a poll up for you guys to see which one you like better, in our light setting or kind of our dark setting. Is the two ways I'll call them. Because one was more light, one was more dark. And yeah, let us know in the comments, let us know in the poll, and hopefully help us improve our podcast for the future.
This was Pitchside Prospects, the Youth Football Chronicles. I was your host, JC. Here's my co-host,
Zachary Jens. Don't forget to head over to YouTube, like and subscribe. It really helps us out continuing to keep this thing going. If you have any ideas for future podcasts or want to participate, coach or player, please feel free to reach out to us. Have a good one.
Adieu.
Yeah.